new episode of Startup to Scale Founders Marketing Playbook. I am Riddhi Gulati, your host and guide through the fascinating world of the entrepreneurial marketing. In this invigorating podcast series, we're diving deep into the heart of startups and decoding the intricate art of marketing from scratch. Whether you're a visionary startup founder, a tech entrepreneur, a solopreneur carving your path, or a passionate marketing professional, this podcast is tailor-made for you. Today, we are thrilled to have a true trailblazer in the world of media and content creation. The voice shaping the future of content and creativity, Aniruddha Pawade. Currently, he stands as the visionary founder of Superwork, an end-to-end podcast solutions company. Aniruddha has been associated with top brands like Idea Brew Studios, Oli Sunu Radio Network, Audio Boom, Star India, Red FM, Radio 1, Channel 4 Radio Network, Radio Voice, Radio Mirchi, and Gracell Marketing Promotions Private Limited. Have I missed out on any creative brand here? No. With nearly 2 decades of experience, Aniruddha has been instrumental in revolutionizing the radio and podcasting industry. His journey has been marked by creating award-winning and critically acclaimed shows, demonstrating his profound understanding of the power of storytelling. Welcome to the show, Aniruddha. We can't wait to hear the magic voice behind so many successful radio shows and podcasts.
Thank you so much, Riddhi. You've been too kind, and there was too long an intro. I'm not that great a content creator, but yeah, I'm just fishing for compliments. But otherwise, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm very sure this conversation is going to be delightful, and I'm sure your audience will also find this useful.
So, Aniruddha, tell us a little about your venture, Superwork.
So, Superwork is basically an audio solutions company. We create podcasts and deliver all podcast solutions to our clients. So, anyone looking for any kind of podcast solution, be it production, be it just hosting, be it syndication, we help them out. We work with people and brands. And ultimately, overall, the purpose of starting Superwork was to give quality service to all our clients. I come from radio and audio background. That's the only thing I know very well. So yeah, being in radio and podcasting for almost 20 years now. So I thought, why not give some good quality solutions to clients with podcasts.
So you're like a veteran in the genre of content creation, Aniruddha, and it's evident that you have a profound passion for podcasting and content creation. Could you share a memorable experience from your almost 2 decades in radio and podcasting that truly exemplifies the power of storytelling in connecting with the audience?
Yes, I knew that you're going to ask this question, but I started feeling old because when I thought of the year, I was like, damn, 2006 was almost 18 years back. So this is from 2006. I just joined radio. Earlier, I was in ad sales and I had never thought of joining radio. Things happened and I got into radio and I became a radio jock. And this is in Pune. So Pune Marathon was organized. This is 2006 winter, I think November, December. And I had the first experience that I'll probably never forget of what a popular person or a celebrity feels like. I was invited on the stage to speak. Obviously, it was marathon. At the end of the marathon, everyone was having fun. People were partying. People were celebrating the end of the marathon. And I was called on stage and people cheered. I was, in fact, worried. I was thinking of the opposite because I was thinking, I am so new here. If my name is announced and people don't recognize me, I don't want, crickets chirping there. I don't want dead silence there. But to my surprise, thankfully, people cheered and I was very happy. And I realized that in just 2 months, people know me now. And being a new content creator, so to say, like radio jocks, like OG influencers, right? So it was fun. And I'm not saying this is, I am not trying to take credit. This, I'm sure every radio jock and now every influencer notices in public events, the amount of love and appreciation that crowd shower on you. It's absolutely amazing. And what I'm trying to say with this story is basically, see, creators and brands, what they don't realize is the impact your content creates. And especially in this digital age where social media is so heavily used, you look at metrics that I wouldn't call them vanity metrics. So likes, engagement, comments, yes, very important. Shares, so much of algorithm focuses on sharing the content now. But ultimately, 97% of the people are quietly, moving through social media. They're not commenting, they're not liking, they're not sharing the reels or the posts or the, so to say, the tweets they're coming across, right? What happens is ultimately, yes, you should be looking at these metrics, but you should also try to realize what kind of impact your content is creating with those 97% of the people who are not showing any sign of engagement. But ultimately, they are perceiving your content, your brand in a certain way. And that's what you should be tapping into. Ultimately, once you start speaking to those 97% people, you'll figure out so much of your strategy, what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And it will bring a lot of value if you start speaking to those 97% people.
So that's when you realize that you are popular, and so well said, Aniruddha. Because it's not about only those people who vocalizing their liking for you or for the content. It's about those people who are
Yeah.
subconsciously they've adopted you as a part of their life. The day to day life through your voice content, radio, jockey that you were, or podcasting, or any other content piece that they may be consuming. So yeah,
Yeah.
that is definitely, it must have given you goosebumps at that point, and I'm sure it would have followed by many more such instances, but this was the first one. You can't forget this. It's a special one. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it was fun and it was so different. And I think that's what everyone's chasing, right? Like, that's the feeling that everyone chases. Anyone who wants to be an influencer, they want to be popular, they want to be chased by people. Uh, but it's fun. It's fun and it's interesting. And I think having a good conversation with radio jocks, TV presenters, influencers will help a lot of brands, especially anyone in marketing, and not talk, what will get likes, what will get comments, but try to figure out how do you tap into the other audiences and know what they're feeling, know what their, what their perceptions are. That would help a lot.
As an architect behind Superwork, Aniruddha, tell us that you've transformed podcast ideas into impactful shows. Can you walk us through the process of concept building and how you turn simple ideas into captivating narratives?
Sure. So see, there's no set formula to this. There's no book to refer to saying that, this is how you start and this is how you end. Ultimately, it's a process that you need to figure out on your own, because every client, every brand, every creator will have a different requirement. Ultimately, depending on their requirement, depending on what they've already figured out, you need to see where you need to come in as a partner. So I'll give you an example. When brands come to us, what they've already done is half of the work. They already know what kind of podcast they want to create. They already know what platforms they want to be on. Maybe they've figured out the format, but rest of the work they want us to do. So there's no set way to creating a podcast. But what I would say is, again, I don't want this to become like a philosophical podcast episode. But ultimately, the key thing, the key step to every content creation process is figuring out the purpose. Once the intent of creating something is clear, you know what content to create. Intent leads to content. The simplest line to remember. Figure out your intent and you know what content to create. And once you're clear on the purpose why you're creating some kind of content, then you can answer everything else. Should it be a fiction or a non-fiction show? What platforms does your audience exist on? So that's where you need to syndicate your content. What format should be there? So what kind of format does all your audience like? So that that takes care of that. What should be the length of the content? Again, depends on your audience preferences, and that's crucial, right? Brand managers, content creators are generally not answering these questions. It's ultimately everything is about the audience. What they like, you have to deliver. And then obviously, once you deliver content, once they like the content you're giving them, then they'll obviously reciprocate by either being a part of your community or buying your products or listening to your ads or whatever, right? And that's very crucial, right? And the biggest thing is very simple thing to remember is people in long term will forget what you've said, they'll forget what you've done, but they'll never forget how you've made them feel. That's like the most crucial thing that you have to deliver through content. If people feel a certain emotion after uh, watching your content or listening to your content, you've won the game. And you have to do it consistently over a period of time, but that's how you do it. So there's no set purpose. There's no set process as such. But these are some of the things that you need to figure out with your clients and brands and partners and creators, and you should be there.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Aniruddha. Indeed, every content should have a purpose behind it. No putting fancy, jazzy things around content creation. Simple purpose and relating to the audience with the right emotional connect, I think brings out, and with the kind of rich experience that you have, you've sort of mastered that. So, any brand does the podcasting or any kind of content creation with you is definitely, in the pros hand for sure. So, for aspiring podcasters and businesses entering the podcast realm, what advice do you offer to avoid common pitfalls and effectively leverage podcasts in the content strategy for growth, audience engagement, and building meaningful relationships?
Yeah. See, the biggest problem as such, I would say, is people think that once you create content, you'll win, right? I've seen a lot of brands and creators thinking, let me create 5-10 episodes of a podcast and then I'll see, if it works out. It will never work out. I would say don't create a podcast. If you're just thinking of creating 5 episodes or 10 episodes, don't do it. Like, save your money, probably just, do more Instagram or Facebook push. I'll tell you reason. No brand, no creator will ever say, let me create 5 Instagram reels and let me see if I go viral. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, there are ways to it, but still, creating 5 posts and creating 5 episodes is almost the same thing. Just the format is different. You're creating a 1-minute reel here. You're creating maybe a 1-hour-long episode, or maybe a 15-minute or a 30-minute podcast episode. It's the same thing. Ultimately, you're creating content. So what happens is people don't realize that these are so similar. So if you're thinking that you just create 5 or 10 episodes and then, it will work out, and if it doesn't work out, you stop funding the podcast. It doesn't work out like that. Main thing is realizing this. So the key is consistency. You have to keep creating content. And if you ask any influencer, in case I'm sure you're going to interview a lot of influencers as you scale up the podcast as well. I'm very, very sure I think you should ask this question. Which video do you think took you, that skyrocketed your popularity? And the answer would be, say, 50, 100, 150. It could be an Instagram reel. It could be a Facebook video. It could be a YouTube episode. It could be a podcast episode, but it takes time to grow. It's difficult. And that's why so many people stop podcasting after, say, 4, 5, 10 episodes, because they give up. Like, they think, hey, I'm doing so much of work. It is hard work. Creating a podcast is not easy. Creating a reel is easier, frankly, these days. But it takes time. So ultimately, for any podcaster, any business, any creator, any brand manager, if you want to grow, one is, don't think short term. You have to think long term. Don't think of 5, 10 episodes. Think of long term. Think of 5 years. Think of 5 years, 10 years. This is, the approach to take. Consistency is very, very important. And ultimately, you have to deliver value. Like, you have to be different, first of all, because the competition is getting tougher by the day. You have to be different. You have to deliver value, and you have to do it consistently. And that's what will result in a community that you are looking for. And once you do all these things, you'll see the result yourself.
So true. I think content creation and sort of attaching to the audience is like a journey, where you just keep going and people eventually start to notice you, relate themselves with you, and put their trust in your brand or your product or the content that you create, and find value, definitely, because the purpose is definitely going behind the intent. Very well said. So your focus areas include podcasting, social media, creative growth, and content strategy. Which specific trends or strategies you most excited about, and how do you think they will shape the future of the marketing landscape?
See, trends come and go. Strategy again depends on what's trending. But ultimately, what I overall feel is AI is going to make a lot of difference. And I'm beating the same drum, frankly, but sorry for that. I mean, but ultimately what people are not realizing it, when I say AI, people, a layman would generally look at ChatGPT and Midjourney and all these other tools. But what people are not realizing is there's AI in everything that we do, including this recording, including the podcast episode that your audience is tuning in on or watching on. Every platform uses AI everywhere, and the tech is getting so good that the equipment that we're using to record this podcast, the platform that we're using to record this podcast, will change, will face competition from the smallest players. Even the mic that I'm using to record my podcast on, this interview on, will not be required. It's not required right now. In fact, the tech is so good that you can record at the noisiest place and still get studio quality recording. Like, imagine, I could be sitting at a railway station in India somewhere. I could be sitting at Dadar right now and recording this episode, and you would not be able to make a difference. Like, you will not be able to differentiate the audio quality. You'd think that, I'm sitting in a, good studio to record this episode. So it's that good. So imagine, what would a mic company be selling? Like, there's no point in selling mics then, right? I mean, especially to podcasters. So, I mean, AI is getting that good. So what creators and brands should be looking at is, how is AI impacting their business, their content creation journey overall. And it's making lives a lot easier. It's helping create content way cheaper. You don't have to invest so much in tech and gadgets now. Like, take an example of, say, Adobe Podcast. That's the solution I was talking about, right? So it gives you good quality audio. If you give it a noisy audio where you are recording something, it will clear out the noise as much as possible and give it to you with a very good result. Take the example of iPhone cameras. You don't need a mirrorless camera now. You can shoot great content with an iPhone camera. So ultimately, this is very crucial. And what brands and creators need to realize, I mean, creators will always be creating content, but what brands need to specifically look at is content marketing. You have to create content now. You blogging, you creating Instagram posts is the bare minimum, like the basic thing that you anyways have to do. But what you do beyond that is what matters more. In fact, Marketeers is an expert in that. You would be helping your clients realize this, right? Ultimately, if you don't create content, you don't have the right to crib that your competition is doing better than you. Like, this is that one thing that all decision makers that I meet, and I tell them, you have to create content. Don't create podcasts. That's okay. I mean, you don't have to only create podcasts because you're sitting in front of me, but create content, build a community without which your products will not sell. And doesn't matter if you're B2B, it doesn't matter you're B2C, whatever you do, you have to create content.
Absolutely. I think AI is sort of also pushing and enabling us at the same time to be able to create, think out of the box, think more creatively, and deliver something which is very high quality. And at the same time, the landscape has become very competitive with so many AI tools coming in the picture. So
yeah, absolutely.
So outsourcing marketing services like podcast production can often be very cost effective for businesses. Please share with us how outsourcing marketing work not only saves the cost, but also enhances the overall quality of content, leading to increased audience engagement.
See, ultimately, some of the stuff you have to outsource, because hiring people is not easy, especially post-COVID. Like, expectations of even people have changed. Talent expects, a lot now from any company. So hiring is not easy, and getting the right expert at the right price is also difficult. If you can't be like not wanting to spend money, but also want someone who's a pro, can't happen. A good solution is outsourcing to a good agency, right? Where they have experts in-house, and then it becomes cost effective if you do a long-term agreement. And thinking long-term is the solution ultimately, because if you're not thinking long-term, any investment be it hiring employees or outsourcing the work to an agency like Marketeers or Superwork, would be expensive. Ultimately, if there's a long-term association, that's when it becomes cost-effective. And content creation is anyways, like I'll talk about content creation specifically. It's not an easy job. It's not a one-person job. You need to hire production teams, design team. There should be someone for post-production. You need tech for hosting, syndication. And of course, I mean, after everything, you need to market the content as well. So some companies try and be smart about this and say, no, we'll think long term and we should have a team in-house. But what happens is the team doesn't adapt to the changes according to time. You've hired them in 2015, but they're not up to 2023 now, because they haven't learned, they haven't figured out the new tech, they haven't figured out how things work now. And that's where the problem is. So if a content team in sitting in a company, hired by the company, is sitting in a company and they don't know how to use podcasts, it's a problem because they haven't figured it out. But ultimately, that's what I'm saying, that you should just outsource. Let the agency like Superwork or Marketeers take care of all the headache that comes through. And hiring an expert comes with perks that will not show up on a daily basis. It's the nitty-gritty. It's fine stuff that you'll not realize on a day-to-day basis, but ultimately the end result shows why this kind of an investment is a good thing.
And there is no point creating a Me Too content, even though you do it regularly. I think there has to be a purpose and a very high quality, and a lot of creative minds have to put together their thoughts to bring out that content. And if outsourced, it brings a fresh perspective as well, and especially for agencies and like Superwork and Marketeers who've done podcasting and content creation for so many players across industries, that across industry learning and creativity also plays a very impactful role in creating good content.
Absolutely.
So tell me, many businesses are concerned about maintaining their brand voice when outsourcing marketing efforts. How does Superwork ensure that the podcasts they produce align with the brand identity and values of the businesses they work with, providing a seamless experience for the audiences?
So ultimately, like the first thing that we've already discussed is purpose of the content. Why are you creating a certain kind of content, and then your marketing falls in line. But ultimately, it's up to not just the marketing manager, the CMO, but also the agency, the production house that you're working with, to make sure that the values of the company and what they believe in, what the brand believes in, it needs to flow into the content. If that doesn't happen, it will always fail. So again, there's no book to follow that you should do this and then this will happen. This is not literally science. But ultimately, being authentic, making sure that what you believe in is also reflected in the content, that will help a lot. And ultimately, this all happens once the agency you're working with, the expert you're working with, once they're clear about your brand personality, your company, your values, your purpose, speaking to employees. See, ultimately what happens is, only the marketing team is speaking to an agency. Have you ever interacted with the HR team? Have you ever, if let's assume that you're working with a tech company, have you spoken to your developers? Once you speak to them, you understand the culture of a company. You understand, has the company has the vision of the company, has the purpose of the company trickle down to the last person in the company. And once you realize that, then it will also help you build better content, help market better. Because if your family is not in place, how do you expect your customers, your audiences to understand your purpose and vision? Ultimately, once the family is a single unit, that's when that you can carry the message outside as well, and it will be effective.
Yeah. So I think for creating content, a lot of groundwork and a lot of integration and a lot of discussions happens with the client to make sure we understand the client and create the real, value system, or speak the real tone of the product that the service or the product of the client has.
Absolutely.
So tell us, so having said that, okay, outsourcing marketing work is definitely cost effective and creatively better option. But considering what should be the criteria that the businesses should consider while choosing a partner, are there any specific qualities or expertise that are crucial for successful outsourcing partnership in the realm of content creation and marketing?
Yeah. Again, very important is hands-on experience. I'll specifically talk about podcasting because all the other services are pretty popular now. Podcasting is something that's upcoming, and marketers especially have a marketers, and not as in like your agency, but people who are into the marketing delve, they have a hard time deciding whom to go with. Ultimately, the biggest and the most important thing is you should go to an agency that doesn't just white label stuff, right? Content creation, not everyone has content creation experience. And the problem is so many agencies, so-called podcasting companies of mushroom, that do not have any content creation experience. What happens is ultimately, once you give an assignment, it's going to go outside the agency, it's going to get created, and it's going to come back to the agency and just get delivered to the client. That's the problem, right? Because if you're touting yourself as an expert in the field, you should have that expertise. So I think any decision maker, first thing that they need to figure out is anyone whom you're outsourcing the work to, it doesn't have to be necessarily Superwork, anyone else, do they have hands-on experience of creating content? Right? I've seen so many people, so many decision makers in these so-called agencies have never done a recording, don't even know how to switch on a mic. How do you expect that person to create a podcast for you, right? If you're just going to hire out outdoor talent and freelancers to create content, ultimately you're going to lose somewhere. I'm not saying that they're going to create bad content for you, but ultimately, again, that fine stuff shows in the content and the audience realizes it. So this, the fine work that happens by hiring experts, that's what you should be aiming for. So hire people, hire agencies that have experience, and just make sure that they don't white label stuff for you. Do your due diligence. And I think, I'm sure once you invest a little bit of time in this, I'm sure you'll save a lot of money and you'll save a lot of headache, frankly, in the future.
Yeah. So creating consistent content, quality content, and also purposefully choosing and mindfully choosing the agency or the person who's creating that content is very important to make it a success as a successful journey. Because again, content creation has to go on, and that's your window to your brand, for your brand, your services, and your product to the world, and this has to happen consistently. Yeah. So
absolutely, you're looking for a partner, right, for life. So I mean, do your due diligence.
Absolutely. So very well said. So thank you so much for joining us today, Aniruddha. It was fun learning and interacting with you and knowing so much more about the power of how to connect with the audience with the right kind of content and the purpose.
Absolutely, Riddhi. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. It was a pleasure speaking to you. And I'm very, very hopeful that this podcast episode would prove very, very valuable to everyone tuning in. And thanks for the opportunity once again.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today on Startup to Scale, Founders Marketing Playbook. I am Riddhi Gulati signing off. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep creating, and keep scaling your startup to remarkable heights. Goodbye and take care.